Welcome, Impactful Parents. It's time for the Impactful Parenting Podcast, where I give you parenting tips and resources to make you a more impactful parent to your school-age child. I am your host, Christina Campos. Welcome, Impactful Parents. All over social media, it is being publicized that Germany has decriminalized child pornography. It was shocking when I first saw this, but what does this mean to us here in the United States? Hello, my name is Christina Campos, and I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school-age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of 4 kids, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school, and today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today is one of those episodes with my co-host, Rodrigo Bravo. Rodrigo is a co-parenting mediator out of the state of Texas. He is a parenting coach, and he is a dad of 2 boys. Rodrigo brings a dad's perspective onto the Impactful Parent stage to give you even more expertise and an added perspective on our parenting topics. So I'm glad Rodrigo is here to join us. Let's dive into this because it's crazy. How can they decriminalize porn? What?
When you sent me this, I was kind of taken aback. I said, wow, this doesn't sound good, at least from the very beginning, right? When you hear the video play or whatnot. And so I was very intrigued by it. And I'm glad that we're talking about it because I think it is important for us to, be aware of these topics, but also fact checking these topics.
Exactly. So let's show the audience the video of where I first heard this. But if you look or Google this, you're going to find it everywhere on the internet. But here's the video where I saw it.
Yeah, you read that right. Germany, what have you done? Every pedophile in the world is going to be going to Germany. You just made it so much more dangerous for children. All over the world. Men that were running CSAM websites over there that are sitting in jail waiting for their cases to go to court asked for a stay until this law gets passed. All of the CSAM websites are going to relocate to Germany. Reading the thinking on this madness, they think if they decriminalize it, people that are pedophiles will come out, making it more safe for children. And they said they were really worried about the cases where teenagers are exchanging photos between themselves, and then they pass them on to their teacher to tell on the other teenager. They didn't want those people getting charged. But instead of making like an amendment to that law, they just decriminalized it. People who are attracted to minors get worse, not better, especially if you're reinforcing the bad behavior. This is the same reason why child sex dolls should be outlawed everywhere. The age of consent in my state is 16, not 18. CSAM is under 18. So if you take a picture of it, it's a felony. I thought that was messed up. But wait, age of consent in China is 14. And middle school teacher can have an affair with one of his students, it's totally fine. Age of consent in Germany is 12. What are you all doing? I guess don't take your kids to Germany. Be aware and be safe.
Okay, let's fact check this really quick because I actually really like this content creator. He does amazing stuff and he does great things. And so I really found him pretty credible. What I found though is that it's just slightly misleading. So here's the facts. Germany did reduce the minimal jail terms for processing, distributing, and acquiring child porn. They really did do that. The minimal jail sentence for distributing the child pornography went from 1 year to 6 months. So they cut it in half. And for possessing it and acquiring it, there are minimal terms that have been cut from 1 year to even 3 months. So they really slapped that one down. But the maximum term for such offenses still remains 10 years. That's their max. With a minimum jail term that's under 1 year, what happens is these offenses are now considered misdemeanors rather than felonies. Like, whew, my mind was blown with that. So why would they do this? Well, the sentence for getting caught with child pornography for 1 year was a minimum sentence of being in jail. And there was really not many exceptions to that. But there was no way for someone who didn't have bad intentions and had child pornography in their possession to avoid jail. Now, you might be thinking, when would a person have child pornography in their possession without bad intentions, right? Well, what they were trying to do is, like, let's say a mom caught their son with child pornography on their phone. And what I mean by that is any minor, like when your teenager is like sexting, okay, and they're sending some provocative photos to each other, and even though they're the same age, or maybe if your child's like 19 and they're dating someone slightly younger, like 17 years old, 16, 18 even, this can still be considered child pornography. So if a mom finds it and then takes that type of material and wants to report it, well, she has the material in her possession, and therefore she is now caught with child pornography, even if she's trying to do the right thing or turn it in. So by downgrading the lesser offenses to a misdemeanor, this allows for a shorter sentence to be imposed on a case-by-case basis, and maybe even cases to be dropped. So in short, Germany lawmakers argued that decriminalization, and it's just that one word that I feel is not accurate when we're hearing of some of these reports, because it's not that they decriminalized it. It's still a criminal offense. But with this new, like, lowering the sentence, it gives that necessary flexibility to deal with that large portion of juvenile offenders that have this in their possession, and to help protect parents and teachers who discover child pornography on devices of a young person or whatever that might look like, and then be able to pass that on to relevant authorities. So that's really what happened. I'm going to give you some time I know that's a lot to process, Rodrigo, but what are your first thoughts? Because I'm sure your first thoughts are going to be similar to what the audience might be thinking right now.
Yeah, and I think this illustrates why it's so important to do your own research, but also rely on the research of experts. In this particular case, when you take the video at face value, yeah, it sounds startling. It sounds ridiculous. To legalize child pornography, it's a wild thought, right? It's a crazy concept. But when you really look into it, Germany tightened their child pornography laws back in 2010. They really clamped down on them really hard. And I read this via a Reuters article. They clamped down on the laws, and they got feedback from the court system, from prosecutors, from they have a kind of a similar judicial system that we have over here, but they have different names. But for example, like the district attorneys over there, right? And the folks handling the court cases, they said, hey, you know what? This 1 year minimum sentence, it was a mandatory 1 year minimum, was too harsh. Now, you and me, when we immediately hear that, well, what do you mean 1 year is too harsh? Like they should be getting decades in jail. But like you said, there are circumstances where people are moving these type of images and so forth and I'm quoting, from a non-pedo criminal perspective. So that means teachers, for example, a mom, a dad, right? They catch their child sexting to somebody else. They take screenshots of it. Then they communicate with the other parents, say, hey, look, your son and my daughter are doing this. Tell your son to stop doing this. And if somebody will report that parent now can be charged with possession and distribution of child pornography. And under those old policies, those old mandatory jail sentences, they would be forced to be at least given a 1 year minimum sentence in jail. And because of that, there was no leeway. There was no way to say, well, look, this is a parent, they're not actively out here, distributing their own child's pornography or somebody else's, they're trying to get like, hey, let's stop this, but that's what the law was pretty much forcing the courts to do. And so that's why they went ahead and started creating these this movement to kind of reduce, or I'm sorry, provide reduced options for child pornography. And I think that's good. I think when policy is passed, it doesn't mean that it covers everything. The judicial system is created through laws that are passed by the legislator, but they're not experts. They're not going to foresee every single one. And in this case, I mean, I think it's hard to argue that passing, child pornography laws is a bad thing. I mean, I think everybody would agree, like, yeah, we want to do that. But there are circumstances where maybe, we need to reconfigure the laws so that parents like you and I, aren't caught up in something that we never had the intention of getting caught up in, which would be, possessing or distributing child pornography.
I agree. And you feel like if you have a teenager, they're likely doing this. And so because teenage sexting is so popular, and for a variety of reasons, by the way, like, I mean, some kids like to do sexting because it's like a progression into, their sexuality and discovery and all those things. And, sometimes they're experimenting, and sometimes they feel like it's safer because then they can be a little vulnerable with their partner without actually doing the deed. There's so many reasons why teenagers put crazy things in their heads. I mean, you'd be astounded if you talk to a group of teenagers about this topic. But the reality is that 1 in 4 teens are receiving sexually explicit texts or emails. Like, that's just, it is 1 in 4. I mean, it's crazy, the statistics. And at least 1 in 7 are sending these text messages. And even 1 in 10 teens are forwarding those messages without consent to their friends. And so it's a problem. And at the same time, should a teenager be convicted the same way as an adult who knows way better and is doing it obviously with somebody very young? Like, now you have an adult and a minor, and like, it's just not right? So they shouldn't be sentenced the same way. And the way the law was written before, it sounded like it was. Now, in the video, the guy did mention, like, hey, what is Germany doing? Now there are people waiting in jail for the sentence to go through so that they can possibly lower it. And why didn't they just amend it? They could have amended. He mentioned something about putting an amendment to the law instead of just changing the law altogether. And my response to that part would be, I mean, I just don't know Germany's judicial system. And I do know it is definitely different than ours. And so they may not have been able to do an amendment. Who knows? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if he knows the answer to that. Now, he's a guy who was trying to catch child pornography back when he was a cop years ago. So my assumption is that he knows better than I do. But that doesn't mean that he's always right either. We're all humans. We make mistakes. So it just brings, like, when I hear people listen to this, remember to keep the big picture that Germany is not like the United States. And I would like to think and give Germany the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to fix things the way that they best think that they should. And if there was a way to do an amendment to that, they would have done it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit.
Well, I think it boils down to, like, understanding what they're going through and them passing the laws and then reacting to it, getting the feedback. Once I delved into the case and kind of into the whole the basis for these videos, because it did blow up, it did go viral. You start to wonder, like, okay, I don't understand Germany like that, right? And so maybe I don't have all the facts, and I think it's quite apparent that these folks that are making the videos don't have all the facts either, or didn't do maybe their basic research. My question for you, Christina, is, I know you follow this person. I know that you've kind of seen their videos and they're part of your feed, and you kind of grew into a zone where you're saying, like, I trust this person. I trust this person's content. I take it at face value, so forth. How did that make you feel when you said like, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't right. And I don't think he got it right this time. Like, how did that make you feel?
That is such a great question because I had been following him for a while and he had created that know, like, and trust with me already. So when this came up, I was like, no. And immediately I went into anger to be an ally to him and all of his followers. Like, yes, he's right. Oh my gosh, that's wrong. How could Germany do that? This is going to be horrible for the whole world. You know, all the child molesters are going to go to Germany or figure out how to go, through Germany in some way to not have their sentences done, especially when a lot of child pornography goes through the World Wide Web, which does not have borders. So I figured that there's probably some danger there with Germany doing this, as he kind of implied with all of us. He gave that sentiment in the video, right? So I was 100% behind him. When then I thought to talk about it here on the podcast. And that's when I thought of like, you know what? I need to fact check everything to make sure. And now I'll say, it brought me down to reality again, that he's human and we all make mistakes. He probably should not have said decriminalized because that is the wrong word. They lowered the sentence. And it's a different sentiment altogether. Having said that, I still feel like there's a lot of things that he probably knows more than I do, that he's right. There are certain things about this that could put the United States in jeopardy just because we're the World Wide Web. So I think there's some valid things, but it did put me right in check with my own feelings about content creators. Made me go, oh, yes, of course. Why did I fall into that? I should know better. Kind of slapping myself in the head a little bit. And I'm not angry with him at all. Don't get me wrong. Because I think some people, when they feel now deceived, like, I fact checked it, that's not 100% correct. I'm not angry with him. It just humbled me.
That's interesting that you said that, because I don't have any relationship. I've never seen this guy, or maybe I have, but it didn't strike me as content that I was necessarily interested in. When you sent it to me, I delved into a couple more, and I did feel like this particular video was a bit more sensationalist than other videos that I saw from him. And I thought that's the key word right there, decriminalizing. I almost felt like the video was made for the purpose of shocking people by using that word, decriminalizing, because I think it's natural for people to say like, how in the world would people say like it's okay to decriminalize child pornography? I'll take it a step further. When I saw the video and I started doing my own research, I looked up places that are looking into decriminalizing child porn.
Oh, you did?
I did. And there's actually studies out there that talk about decriminalizing child porn as one way of lowering child abuse. This was a study that was done out of the Czech Republic, and there have been previous studies that have been done in Japan and Denmark, where making child pornography legal led to lower rates of child sex abuse. Now, of course, this I know this like whoa, right? We're like, well, I mean, honestly, right? You're probably, a lot of people are probably watching right now saying, what the fuck? Like, we're gonna legalize child porn?
I just thought it was the opposite. I thought that the more that if it's not decriminalized, right, then you would do it more, that it therefore encourages it. But they're saying that the statistics are different.
So some of the studies that have been created that have been seen say that the theory is that sexual offenders use child pornography as a substitute for sex crimes against children. Of course, this leads into a whole like, okay, are you the chicken and the egg, right? Like, what are we talking about now? And we're gonna legalize this so that we can prevent this, but we're still making so it's very convoluted. But studies have shown. Let me pull this up real quick. Let's see. Okay, so it says right here, and I quote, the findings support the theory that potential sex offenders use child pornography as a substitute for sex crimes against children. While the authors do not approve of the use of real children in the production or distribution of child pornography, they say that artificially produced materials might serve a purpose. The results are from the Czech Republic, and they show, as seen in other studies that were done in Canada, Croatia, Denmark, Germany, Finland, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Sweden, that rape and other sex crimes have not increased following the legislation and wide availability of porn. And most significantly, the incidence of child sex abuse has fallen considerably since 1989, when child pornography became readily accessible, a phenomena that was also seen in Denmark and Japan. So they're using various studies and also the kind of the genesis of the internet, if you will, in the late 80s to the early 90s, where they saw, like, child pornography, unfortunately, was available through those means. Child abuse also went down. It's and then I know this, like, is mind blowing. I went down this rabbit hole. I started exploring all these things, right? Because it is kind of like, by making child pornography more accessible, we're actually reducing child abuse. It doesn't make any sense, right? Or at least to me, it doesn't. Once I started reading everything, I said, okay, I can understand that the abusers basically use child pornography as a substitute. Does that work for every child predator? No. Is it always going to work? Is it something I even agree with? No. But it is something to kind of ponder and see how other countries outside of the U.S. are kind of handling that, And again, I'm not saying like this is necessarily right. I don't have all the information in front of me, but I think you made a really good point earlier, Christina. Germany is doing what they feel is best for Germany based on the feedback that they got from the judicial courts, from other entities. They are doing what they feel is best for them. So I know that in the United States, we're pretty, hardcore when it comes to child abuse and child porn, that you have now people kind of making a career out of catching child predators. I'm sure you've seen these videos too, Christina, where, people, and I'm talking about like YouTube amateurs or people that are on YouTube that don't have these shows. They're emulating the Chris Hansen, How to Catch a Predator type of deal, where they post things online and then they meet the person, and some folks, they kind of slap them around. Some folks kind of, take their pictures and then call the authorities, etc. People are dealing with this in different ways. And so some people would even say that's not right. I've seen some of the videos where the producers of these shows actually like abuse the predators. Like they punch them and they go, "You think this is right?" And da. Does that make it right? Of course, most people would say like, "Hey, that's a child predator, kick his ass," But does that still give you the right of abusing another person? You can look. There's a crazy kind of world you can dive into, and like you start getting lost in it. But I think this is really a good point, and I'll finish here, to kind of make sure that we evaluate everything and do the research that we need to do when we see stuff, and not necessarily take everything at face value, because even the people that we trust might get it wrong themselves.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And you just bring up great points of that. We have to look at the huge picture, not even the big picture, huge, because in this topic, there's so many different facets. It amazes me that research that they did, because I thought it was the opposite. He even mentioned in the video that by making it legal, it's going to perpetrate it instead of decline it. But again, this is just another guy. Like, who's, we don't know how credible all this is. And it sounds like they did the research. Maybe that would work. It blows my mind, at least if they are like Norway, you said, who are doing these research and possibly going that direction with AI. Those simulations are going to start being very realistic. This is going to be, I don't want to say interesting, because that's not the right word. It's how this all unfolds over the next 10 years is going to be shocking, no matter how the results end up coming up, whether it's legalizing it actually makes things better or making things way worse. I'll say that there's been an alarming increase in the amount of child sexual abuse material out there published in Germany recently. I read an article by IWF from July of 2022, so it's a few years old, but they had their figures 10 times higher than in previous years then. And so that's when a lot of this law crackdowns, they're trying to get it straight. I feel like Germany's trying to help the children, but for whatever reason, I mean, it's just their judicial system is difficult. So it does pose a question too on what steps is Germany taking to ensure that the new laws don't lead to an increased production and distribution and the consumption of child pornography if they're going to lower these sentences. But maybe, like you said, the Germans will be like the Norwegians. I don't know, it sounds ridiculous, but this is all going to play out so crazy. I don't even know what to say. I just want my audience to know, fact check things. This is what's happening. And if you plan to travel to Germany, you should be aware of some of these things, or even just your kids being online, just because we are interconnected no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really kind of the message that we're trying to share with folks today, because there is a lot of material out there that is educational, beneficial, and highlights things that need to be highlighted. But there are also a lot of videos and content that is sensationalizing things and making them seem what they're not. I think this particular video is a good example of that. I think the intent was, probably well-meaning,
Oh yeah, I mean, he's trying to protect people in the United States and saying he obviously doesn't agree. I think he had good intent of saying, "Hey, be careful, your kid might be in more danger."
No, and I agree, and I'm definitely not against that message. But I also think that if you're going to use something in support of that message, let's make sure that that content is correct and not sensationalized. I have seen other content that from parenting channels and from platforms where they do kind of exaggerate, certain things, and I've seen it happen constantly enough that I can no longer trust them. I can no longer I fact check a lot, right? But let's be real honest. A lot of times when we scroll through videos and we listen to them, how often do we fact check? Christina, out of every 10 videos, how many of those videos do you actually fact check?
0.1, not even one.
So it's not even 1 out of 10, it's 1 out of 100.
Probably.
Yeah. And when we see videos, right, we kind of judge the content creator first, right? And so for me, if I'm just scrolling and I'm seeing, Instagram shorts or YouTube shorts or whatever, right, stories, if it's a content creator that I'm not familiar with, I probably just take whatever's being said with a grain of salt, right? If it's something that's interesting, right, some facts or something, right? Okay, maybe it is true, maybe it's not. But like you, I don't fact check everything. I really don't. Now, if it's something that I'm going to repost or share, that's when I definitely do fact check. I feel like, hey, I got to make sure that I got my stuff correct, that I am legit when it comes to this, because I'm putting my reputation on the line. And, I actually shared something, I think it was during the pandemic, that was actually wrong. And I remember sharing it on Twitter. I can't remember what it was, but I shared it. And then one of my followers, one of my friends' followers that are on Twitter, they actually told me, they go, "Hey man, that's actually not true." Da, 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 da. And so of course I'm like, "Well, what do you mean it's not true?" I thought it was, legit. And so he did the same thing that we're doing right now, and sent me quite a few articles and said, like, check this out, blah, 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 blah. Just want to make sure you may want to take the tweet down. He was pretty adamant about me taking it down because he felt like I was just contributing to the misinformation. I read the articles and I realized, holy shit, I am wrong. I really am wrong, and you can't have that. I don't want to be wrong. I don't mind being wrong, right? But I don't want to be wrong and still continue to perpetuate misinformation. So I did take down a tweet, and then I wrote a tweet that said, "Hey guys, sorry, I was misinformed. Thanks to so and so for pointing out, blah, blah, blah." And I think that's what's missing sometimes from content creators. When they get it wrong, I would love to see this gentleman, push out another video and say, "Hey guys, I made a mistake on my previous video. I just want to clear the air on what's going on in Germany and this and that." He can still make the same points and say, I still am vehemently opposed to child pornography. This is my opinion, but definitely clarify the factual portions of his content and say, like you did right now, Christina, like they're not decriminalizing child porn. They just made some adjustments to the laws and the policies because of circumstances surrounding special cases, parents, teenagers, etc. On that note, Christina, has there ever been a time that you shared something that wasn't correct, that maybe you had to walk back or take back? I know that you share a lot of content, you share a lot of studies, you've had podcast interviews. Have you ever felt like there was something that maybe got lost in the weeds, or you got lost in the weeds promoting something and then realized, oh, snap, I was incorrect about this?
Absolutely. It happens. I don't want to say all the time because it doesn't really happen all the time, but it happens because we make mistakes. And where do we get most of our information? It's not from the Saturday or the Friday night news that we used to watch as kids. Like I remember my parents, and we used to watch, our local channel news anymore. And that's great. It's still there, right? But the majority of us are getting our news from online sources now, including this video. Like I had no idea about this was happening in Germany, and I did not see anything on the news about it until I saw it on social media. And so then sometimes you take some of these people that you trust, just like I did, and you consider that as a news reporter. And you're like, oh, he's reporting some news and I believe him. And then you consume that news and consider it to be truth. And it happens all the time. We just put our trust sometimes in normal people, and our normal people, we make mistakes. So I definitely have done that. It's so hard to admit that you're wrong. And I'm pretty like, hey, I'll admit I'm wrong. And it's still hard for me. So for people who don't like to admit they're wrong, I can't even imagine how difficult it would be for them. But I will say that it is also one of the best things that you can do, just to say, oops, I messed up. The way you did it in your Twitter tweet was perfect, honestly. Just, hey, thank you for this. I was misinformed. Let me change that. I feel like that gains so much respect, but it is hard to swallow that ego pill and say, oh, I was wrong. But I think we need to do it. And I think it's a great role modeling too for our kids and our own teenagers who are learning how to make mistakes, because our teenagers don't like to make mistakes either. So what do? They default to anger. Sometimes they default to lying because they don't want to admit that they've made a mistake. And so it's great role modeling if we can show them that it's okay to make a mistake and say, backtrack, swallow the pride pill, and just take it and be the bigger person, because we're really showing our teenagers something amazing there.
I agree with you 100%. Both of my boys, especially my youngest son, I've really kind of gotten him accustomed to swallowing your pride and just admitting when you're wrong. And I think that's a really good behavior. I think that's a really good way to kind of live life. A lot of times we hold on to these beliefs, these core beliefs that, if we're wrong, it creates this cognitive dissonance that we're super uncomfortable with. And I feel that if more people would take the time to realize, like, hey, that discomfort may mean growth. It may mean you learning something. Then the whole world will probably be a better place, because 9 times out of 10, when you feel that you might be wrong, you probably are wrong. And it's time to kind of, think about that and navigate that appropriately, and be honest with yourself if you are wrong, especially if it's in a public context. Not all of us get it right the first time. And if you're misinformed and you had something wrong, and just admit it and then move forward from there. Last point I'll make is you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people that followed me appreciated that response. They were like, hey, no problem, bro. This and that. Hey, I'm glad that you said that. I was wondering about that too, and this and that. And not that I have like a large following, but a lot of people that do follow my tweets, they know that I'm honest and I'm very forthright, but I also try to be very factual. And so if I don't clarify that and they find out that no, he was wrong, well, then it deteriorates my credibility. And that's one thing that I really do hold very special to me, right? It's my credibility and making sure that people can trust me for whatever information it may be, whether it's like just some regular tweet, some pop culture thing, or something that's related to mediation and co-parenting consultancy.
And I think that a lot of us don't want to admit that we're wrong because we're fearing that that's going to hurt our credibility, when really it's just the opposite. If we don't admit that we're wrong, then people get mad at us for not being credible. And so, but it's just hard to eat that pride pill and say, I messed up. But teaching your teenager to do this is about just creating a really safe space for them to make those mistakes and really rewarding them and encouraging them. But when I say reward, I know people always think to like, got to give them something. Could be words of affirmation. Could be like, hey, great job. And that you admitted that you're wrong. Do those things to encourage every time your child backtracks and says, I messed up. Even if they're just admitting to you that they messed up something, like they didn't present themselves as, I'm right. Maybe they just messed up anywhere in their life. They got into a car accident and instead of hiding it, they told you. This is how we start to develop that trust with them, that they can admit their mistakes. That's how we start to do it. When they, Mom, I spilt the milk. No big deal. You don't get mad. You just praise them for telling you and move forward. Make your safe space for admitting mistakes and wrongness. And that's how you kind of develop this. Now, I want to end our time together with this. It's just going back to Germany. Here's a bottom line to wrap it all together. The country has legal frameworks to place in place to prosecute individuals involved in child sexual abuse. Okay. This includes possession and distribution and production of child pornography. They have those in place. They're not decriminalizing anything. And while the details of the new law remain a topic of discussion, because we're not too sure how this is all going to play out in the end, its main objective will likely be to enhance the legal system's ability to combat child sexual abuse and exploitation by possibly adjusting the sentencing guidelines to ensure appropriate consequences for offenders while protecting the rights and well-beings of its victims and being able to dismiss cases that really don't need to have these harsh punishments. So will this make matters worse in the long run, or will make things better? Who knows? Only time will tell, but we're going to find out as we take a close eye on Germany and see, hey, let's see how this plays out for them. Is decriminalizing, or not decriminalizing, is lowering the sentences of child pornography maybe going to help? I love that the Norway and those other countries you were talking about are doing this, because we need to figure out how to eliminate child pornography, or at least minimize it as much as possible. And you know what? For everybody doing it a little bit different, somebody's going to get it right. And then maybe we can emulate that in the future. And that's my hope. Start your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free, so you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. Download the app today. You got nothing to lose because it's free to download. So go to your phone's app store, search Impactful Parent, and I'll be there. Or you can go to theimpactfulparent.com. If you would like to reach out to Rodrigo Bravo for his co-parenting mediation and coaching services, you can email him at rodrigoBravoJr@gmail.com. And remember that this episode is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and the Impactful Parent app. So find out more at theimpactfulparent.com. But until next time, you got this. We're just here to help. Thank you for listening today. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And don't forget, the Impactful Parenting Podcast is an extension of the Impactful Parent community. Go to the Impactful Parent website and download the free Impactful Parent app so you don't miss a parenting tip that can help you and your family. Thanks for listening today. So go to theimpactfulparent.com and see you next episode.